The plasma bolt vaporized the rock 3 inches from Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison's head. He rolled left, dragged Private Nina Vasquez behind the crumbling barricade, and fired blind over the ridge. His rifle's magazine clicked empty on the 4th shot. "That's it," Nina gasped, blood streaming from a gash above her eye. "I'm down to 17 rounds." Jake checked his tactical display. Red icons swarmed the canyon from 3 directions. 200 Krell warriors, maybe more. His team numbered 8. 7 now, after Corporal Hayes took a spike round through the chest 10 minutes ago. "Command, this is Ground Team Phoenix." Jake's voice cut through the screaming, calm static. "We are combat ineffective. Repeat, combat ineffective. Enemy force overwhelming our position. Requesting immediate extraction or fire support." Nothing but static answered. The Krell charged again. Their chitinous armor gleamed purple-black under the alien sun. Jake dropped 2 with headshots before his rifle died completely. He drew his sidearm. "Fall back to the caves," he shouted. His team scrambled over jagged rocks, while plasma fire turned the air into soup. Sergeant Ben Carter laid covering fire with the last functional rifle, backing toward the cave entrance, step by careful step. A plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder. Ben spun, hit the ground hard. "Carter's down!" Nina screamed. Jake sprinted through the killing field, grabbed Ben's tactical vest, and dragged him toward cover. Plasma scorched the ground beside them. The heat blistered Jake's skin through his armor. They tumbled into the cave mouth. Specialist Lisa Grant slammed her fist on the emergency seal. The reinforced barrier dropped with a metallic shriek, cutting them off from the Krell swarm outside. Fists and claws hammered the barrier immediately. The metal groaned. "That won't hold 5 minutes," Lisa said flatly. Jake pressed his comm again. "Command, if anyone can hear this, we are sealed in grid reference 77 Delta. Krell force is about to breach. We have multiple wounded. This is our last transmission." Static. Then a voice, crisp and clear. "Ground Team Phoenix, this is the ESS Valkyrie. We read you." Jake's heart hammered. "Valkyrie, we need fire support on our position now. Danger close. We're underground, but the enemy is topside. Copy that, Phoenix. Fire mission approved. Orbital strike inbound. Time on target, 90 seconds. Recommend you get very deep and very low." The barrier buckled. Krell claws pierced through. "Everyone back," Jake ordered. They crawled deeper into the cave, pulling Ben between them. The wounded sergeant bit back screams. Outside, the hammering intensified. The Krell screeched in their clicking language, sensing victory. Jake counted down in his head. 60 seconds, 45, 30. The barrier exploded inward. Krell warriors poured through the gap, weapons raised. Jake raised his pistol with trembling hands. "Fire," he whispered. Then the sky outside turned white, equal sign. The kinetic strikes hit like the fist of an angry god. The cave shook so violently that Jake's teeth rattled in his skull. Dust exploded from the ceiling. Rocks the size of human heads tumbled from above. The Krell warriors at the entrance disintegrated in a flash of superheated air and debris. The sound came next. Not a boom or explosion, but a continuous roar that seemed to tear reality apart. Jake felt it in his bones, in his organs, vibrating through every cell. Nina screamed, but he couldn't hear her over the apocalyptic thunder outside. The shaking lasted 40 seconds. When it stopped, Jake's ears rang with high-pitched whining. Blood trickled from his nose. Beside him, Lisa coughed violently, her face gray with dust. "Sound off," Jake croaked. His voice sounded distant, muffled. "Vasquez, functional. Grant, functional. Carter here. Shoulders cooked, but I'm breathing." 5 more voices called out. Everyone's still alive. Jake allowed himself 1 second of relief before crawling toward the cave entrance. The barrier hung, twisted and half-melted in its frame. Beyond it, the world had changed. The canyon was gone. In its place stretched a crater so massive Jake couldn't see the far side. Glass-smooth rock reflected the alien sun in 1,000 glittering facets. The kinetic strikes had literally reshaped the landscape. And the Krell? Nothing remained but carbon shadows and scattered fragments of armor. "Dear God," Nina whispered beside him. Jake's comm crackled. "Ground Team Phoenix Valkyrie actual. Assess battle damage and casualties. Valkyrie, this is Phoenix lead. Enemy force completely neutralized. Repeat, complete neutralization. We have 1 urgent surgical, 3 walking wounded, and 5 green. Requesting immediate dust-off." "Negative on immediate dust-off, Phoenix. We've got a situation developing." Jake's stomach dropped. "What situation?" "The Krell didn't send just 1 war party. Long-range sensors are picking up massive troop movements across the entire continent. They're converging on human settlements. We're talking tens of thousands." "How many settlements?" 17. Population total, 43,000 civilians. Nina grabbed Jake's arm. "My sister's on New Providence Colony." "That's one of the settlements, right?" Jake checked his tactical map. New Providence glowed red. "Yeah, it is." The comm continued. "Fleet Command is scrambling every ship in the sector, but we're outnumbered 20 to 1. The Krell committed their entire planetary garrison to this offensive. They want humanity off this world, and they want it now." Ben Carter limped up beside Jake, his wounded shoulder wrapped in emergency foam. "So what's the play, Lieutenant Commander?" Jake stared at the crater, at the devastating proof of what Earth's military could unleash when pushed. Then he looked at his battered team, 8 soldiers who should be dead. 8 soldiers who survived because someone up there decided they were worth saving. "Valkyrie, what's your orbital strike capacity?" "We've got 6 kinetic batteries fully charged and 12 more cycling up." "Why?" Jake's mind raced. The Krell were massing, thousands of them, moving in columns toward defenseless towns. The fleet was outnumbered. Conventional warfare would cost thousands of human lives, but Earth didn't fight conventionally. "I need detailed topography of every route between Krell staging areas and human settlements. Every valley, every canyon, every choke point where their forces have to compress. Stand by. Silence for 10 seconds. Sending now." Jake's display lit up with terrain data. He saw it immediately. The Krell were following the paths of least resistance, using natural corridors to move their armies quickly. There were 7 major routes, 7 kill zones waiting to happen. "Valkyrie, I'm uploading target coordinates. 7 locations. I need simultaneous kinetic strikes on all of them the moment Krell forces enter the zones, Lieutenant Commander. Those are danger close to some settlements." "I know. Time the strikes for maximum enemy concentration, minimum civilian risk. Can you do it?" A pause. Then a different voice came on the comm, harder and older. "Phoenix lead. This is Captain Elena Cross, Valkyrie Actual. You're asking me to drop 7 rods from God simultaneously on a populated world. I need to know you understand what that means." Jake looked at his team, at Nina, who might lose her sister, at Ben, bleeding through his bandages, at 5 other soldiers who trusted him to make the right call. "Captain, the Krell are bringing everything they have. If we fight them building by building, street by street, we lose. But if we hit them in the open, all at once, with everything we've got, we save those 43,000 people. Those strikes will register on seismographs across the planet. The Krell will know exactly what we're capable of." "Good," Jake said. "Let them know. Let them see what happens when you corner humanity. Let them learn why we don't surrender." Silence stretched. Then Captain Cross spoke, her voice carrying the weight of command. Coordinates received. Kinetic batteries locked, on target. Strikes authorized pending Krell troop positions. Phoenix team, consider yourselves forward observers. You call the shots, we'll provide the rain. Jake activated his team's combat network. Listen up, people. We're not done yet. We've got 7 enemy columns to track and 7 strikes to coordinate. Vasquez Grant, you're with me on columns 1 through 3. Carter, despite that shoulder, your command post. Coordinate the other teams on columns 4 through 7. On it, Ben said, already pulling up displays. Nina checked her rifle. My sister gets to live through this, right? Jake met her eyes. Everyone gets to live through this. That's the mission. Above them, in the black of orbital space, the ESS Valkyrie aligned its kinetic batteries. 7 tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, waited in their magnetic cradles. 7 hammers of human ingenuity, ready to fall. On the ground below, Krell warriors marched toward what they thought would be an easy conquest. They had no idea the sky was watching. The first Krell column appeared on Jake's scanner 90 minutes later. 3,000 warriors moving through the broken spine valley, a narrow corridor carved between 2 mountain ranges, perfect killing ground. Valkyrie, Phoenix lead. Column 1 entering Zone Alpha. Enemy count 3,000 plus. Recommend strike in 4 minutes when concentration reaches maximum. Copy, Phoenix. Strike 1 spooling up. Jake zoomed his display, watching the red icons flow like blood through an artery. The Krell moved with military precision, their formation tight and disciplined. They had no idea they were walking into a furnace. Lisa's voice cut through his thoughts. Column 2 spotted. They're taking the coastal route toward Port Sterling. 5,000 strong. Valkyrie, Column 2 confirmed. Stand by for strike authorization. Ben's voice crackled from the cave deeper inside. Columns 4 and 6 are merging. They're combining forces at the river crossing. Total count, 8,000. Jake's blood ran cold. 8,000 Krell in one location, less than 30 miles from New Providence Colony. Nina's sister was there, along with 12,000 other civilians who had no bunkers, no weapons, no chance if that army arrived. Phoenix lead, this is Valkyrie. We're tracking the merge. That's a lot of targets in one basket. Can you handle it with a single strike? Captain Cross answered personally. We can drop 2 rods simultaneously on that position. The blast radius will cover the entire crossing. But, Lieutenant Commander, that's going to leave a mark visible from orbit for the next 1,000 years. Do it the moment they're committed to crossing. Understood. Jake switched channels. Nina, you seeing column 3? Affirmative. They're using the old mining tunnels near Shepherd's Pass. 4,000 warriors. They'll emerge 2 clicks from the elementary school. Jake's jaw tightened. Valkyrie, priority strike on column 3 the second they exit those tunnels. I want them caught in the open with nowhere to run. Strike 3 locked and ready. The next 3 minutes felt like hours. Jake watched his display as colored icons crawled across the terrain. Each icon represented dozens of Krell warriors. Each movement brought them closer to human homes, human families, human children. Column 1 at maximum concentration, Lisa reported. Jake didn't hesitate. Valkyrie, execute strike 1. Strike 1 away. Impact in 30 seconds. Jake counted down silently. Somewhere above the atmosphere, a tungsten rod disengaged from its magnetic cradle. Gravity took over, pulling it down through the sky. No explosives, no propellant. Just mass and velocity and the unforgiving mathematics of kinetic energy. The impact registered on his seismic display first, a sharp spike that jumped off the scale. Then the visual feed from a surveillance drone showed the result. The broken spine valley ceased to exist. In its place, a river of molten rock flowed between shattered mountains. The shock wave flattened everything within 2 miles. Trees vaporized. The Krell columns simply vanished, erased from reality in a fraction of a second. "Strike 1 successful," Jake reported, his voice steady despite the violence he just witnessed. "Column 1 eliminated." Nina's hands shook on her controls. "Column 3 emerging from tunnels now. They're in the open. Valkyrie, strike 3 execute. Strike 3 away." Ben's voice cracked through. "Columns 4 and 6 are halfway across the river. All 8,000 committed to the crossing. Valkyrie, strike 4 execute. Double impact. Double strike confirmed. Impact in 40 seconds." Jake pulled up the surveillance feeds. Column 3, 4,000 Krell warriors streaming out of tunnel mouths, their weapons ready for slaughter. They had no idea death was falling from above at terminal velocity. The strike hit dead center. The explosion was so massive it created its own weather system. A mushroom cloud of superheated debris climbed into the atmosphere. When it cleared, Shepherd's Pass was a smooth crater of fused stone. The elementary school 2 kilometers away had lost every window, but the building stood intact. The children inside would live. "Column 3 eliminated," Lisa whispered. Jake switched to the river crossing feed. 8,000 Krell filled the shallow water. Their formation stretched across 200 meters of exposed riverbed. They were arguing, their gestures animated, probably debating why their other columns had gone silent. They were about to find out. The double strike came down like the wrath of heaven. 2 tungsten rods, perfectly synchronized, hit the riverbed within 1 second of each other. The water flashed steam instantly. The riverbed cracked apart. Magma welled up from deep below, superheated by the kinetic impacts. The entire crossing became a volcano. Not 1 Krell survived. "Columns 4 and 6 eliminated," Ben reported quietly. "That's 8,000 confirmed kills." Jake's calm erupted with reports from the other observer teams. Strikes 5 through 7 had executed simultaneously, catching the remaining Krell columns in valleys, on bridges, and in open plains. Each strike precisely calibrated, each one devastating. In less than 10 minutes, humanity had eliminated over 30,000 Krell warriors without firing a single conventional shot. Captain Cross's voice carried a note of awe. "Phoenix lead, all strikes successful. Enemy columns completely destroyed, seismic readings are off the charts. The entire Krell command structure must be losing their minds right now." Jake pulled up the planetary overview. The red icons were gone. Every single one. The Krell had committed their entire garrison to a coordinated offensive, and humanity had erased it from existence with surgical precision. "Valkyrie, Phoenix lead, requesting updated threat assessment. Stand by. Silence for 20 seconds. Phoenix, long-range sensors show massive Krell retreat. Their remaining forces are pulling back to their primary stronghold. They're going defensive." Nina let out a long breath. "New Providence? Safe. All settlements reporting secure. 0 Krell forces within 50 clicks of any civilian population center." Jake leaned back against the cave wall, suddenly exhausted. His hands trembled with adrenaline crash. Around him, his team sat in stunned silence, processing what they'd just accomplished. "Lieutenant Commander," Captain Cross said, her tone shifting, "I'm uploading something to your display. You need to see this." Jake's screen filled with a translated Krell communication, intercepted from their military network. He read it twice, not quite believing the words. "They're requesting a ceasefire," he said aloud. "Not just a ceasefire," Captain Cross corrected. "They're requesting immediate withdrawal negotiations. The Krell planetary governor is asking for terms. They want to leave this world entirely." Ben laughed, a sharp bark of disbelief. "We scared them off the entire planet?" "You showed them what happens when they threaten human civilians," Captain Cross said. They came expecting an easy fight. Instead, they watched us reshape continents from orbit. The psychological impact is total. Jake thought about the craters, the melted valleys, the vaporized armies. He thought about 43,000 civilians who would wake up tomorrow alive because 8 soldiers called down thunder from the sky. Valkyrie, what are Fleet Command's orders? Stand by for extraction. The Krell are evacuating their stronghold as we speak. By this time tomorrow, this world will be entirely human. You did it, Phoenix. You won the war in one afternoon. Nina wiped tears from her face. I need to call my sister. Make the call, Jake said softly. As his team contacted loved ones, Jake walked to the cave entrance and stared at the massive crater where 200 krill had tried to kill them. The glass-smooth surface reflected the setting sun in brilliant orange and gold. Humanity, he thought. When cornered, when outnumbered, when facing impossible odds, they didn't surrender. They called down the sky itself. The extraction shuttles arrived at dawn. Jake watched them descend through the pink-tinged sky, their engines throwing up dust devils across the cratered landscape. His team had spent the night in the cave, treating wounds and running equipment diagnostics. Ben's shoulder needed real surgery, not just foam and prayers. The lead shuttle touched down 50 meters from the cave entrance. The boarding ramp dropped, and a woman in fleet captain's uniform strode out. Captain Alina Cross looked exactly like her voice suggested. Hard eyes, gray hair pulled tight, shoulders that carried the weight of command without flinching. She stopped in front of Jake and offered her hand. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, you made quite the impression. Jake shook it. Just did what needed doing, Captain. What needed doing was calling down 7 simultaneous orbital strikes on a populated world with civilian populations in the danger zone. That took either genius or insanity. I'm still deciding which. Did anyone die who shouldn't have? Not one civilian casualty. The Krell lost 32,000 warriors. We lost 7 soldiers across all ground teams before the strikes. She paused. Make that 6. Corporal Hayes didn't make it despite the medic's best efforts. He died on my ship 2 hours ago. Jake felt the weight settle deeper in his chest. Hayes had been 23 years old, fresh out of advanced training, always smiling despite the horror around them. Now he was a name on a casualty list. The Krell? Jake asked. Gone. Every last one. Their evacuation fleet departed the system 4 hours ago. They left behind equipment, supplies, even weapons. Just abandoned everything and ran. Cross pulled out a data pad. I'm uploading something you need to see. Krell High Command sent this message to their entire military network. Jake read the translation, his eyes widening with each line. Attention all Krell forces. The human species has demonstrated orbital kinetic supremacy beyond projected capability. Previous intelligence assessments were catastrophically incorrect. Humans possess the ability to eliminate massed ground forces with zero warning and perfect precision. Recommend immediate classification upgrade. Humanity is now designated Apex Threat Level. All future engagements require overwhelming force superiority or complete avoidance. This world is forfeit. They're scared, Lisa said, reading over Jake's shoulder. They're terrified, Cross corrected. We've been fighting the Krell for 3 years across a dozen worlds. Usually it's grinding warfare, trench by trench, building by building, high casualties on both sides. But here, we showed them something different. We showed them that human technology can delete armies from existence faster than they can react. Nina joined them, her face still flushed from talking with her sister. So what happens now? Now you get medals, Cross said. Fleet Admiral Grayson is personally recommending your entire team for the Stellar Cross. The politicians back home are calling this the turning point of the war. We just coordinated fire missions, Jake protested. You did more than that. You proved a concept that's going to change how we fight. Cross gestured to the craters dotting the landscape. Before yesterday, kinetic strikes were considered too risky near friendlies, too much potential for collateral damage. But you demonstrated that with proper coordination and precise timing, we can use them as surgical instruments. Fleet Command is already developing new doctrine based on what happened here. Ben limped over, his arm in a proper sling now. Does that mean more ground teams calling in the hammer? Exactly that. We're forming specialized forward observer units. Small teams, highly trained, embedded with civilian populations on contested worlds. When the Krell mass for attack, these teams will coordinate orbital strikes to eliminate the threat before it reaches our people. Cross looked directly at Jake. We want you to lead the training program. Jake blinked. Captain, I'm a line officer, not an instructor. You're the officer who just won a planetary war in 4 hours with 8 soldiers and 7 kinetic strikes. That makes you exactly the instructor we need. She handed him official orders on her data pad. This is a direct request from Fleet Command. You'll have full authority to design the curriculum, select personnel, and establish operational protocols. We're calling it the Thunderbolt program. Thunderbolt, Nina repeated. I like it. Jake scanned the orders, his mind racing. Training new teams meant leaving the front lines. It meant teaching others to do what his team had done. It meant turning yesterday's desperate gamble into standard military doctrine. It also meant saving lives. Every team he trained would protect civilians. Every coordinated strike would prevent another massacre, another occupied city, another colony burning under Krell plasma fire. I'll need my team, Jake said. You'll have them. Everyone here gets promoted, 1 grade, and assigned to Thunderbolt as primary instructors. Cross smiled slightly. Assuming they want the job? Lisa nodded immediately. I'm in. Same, Nina said. Ben grinned, despite his wounded shoulder. Someone's got to make sure the new kids don't screw up the math. One by one, the rest of the team confirmed. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. These soldiers had faced death with him, trusted his calls, and survived because they worked as one unit. Then it's settled, Cross said. We'll debrief on the Valkyrie during transit to fleet headquarters. You ship out in 30 minutes. As the captain walked back to her shuttle, Jake gathered his team. Listen up. What we did yesterday was extraordinary. We saved 43,000 people and ended a planetary occupation in one afternoon. But it was also dangerous, risky, and required split-second timing. Now we're going to teach others to do the same thing. No pressure, Ben muttered. Exactly. No pressure. Jake looked each of them in the eye. But if we do this right, if we train these teams properly, we can change the entire war. The Krell think they can overwhelm us with numbers. We're going to show them that human ingenuity beats brute force every single time. Nina checked her rifle one last time before boarding. What do we call ourselves? The team, I mean. We need a name for the history books. Jake thought about it, about the sky turning white, about tungsten rods falling like divine judgment, about Krell armies vanishing in fire and thunder. Phoenix, he said. We're Phoenix team. We rose from certain death and brought the fire with us. Phoenix team, Lisa repeated, testing the words. Yeah, that works. They boarded the shuttle in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Through the viewport, Jake watched the scarred landscape fall away. Craters marked the ground like stamps of authority. This world belonged to humanity now, purchased with precision and devastating force. The shuttle climbed through the atmosphere. Below, New Providence colony sparkled in the morning sun. 12,000 people going about their lives, completely unaware how close they'd come to annihilation. Nina's sister was down there somewhere, probably making breakfast, checking the news, living in the peace that Phoenix team had secured. Captain Cross's voice came over the intercom. Phoenix team, welcome aboard the ESS Valkyrie. Fleet Command sends their congratulations. You've got hot showers, real food, and actual beds waiting. I suggest you enjoy them. Training starts in 72 hours, and I hear your new commanding officer is an absolute hard-ass. Jake smiled despite himself. 72 hours, 3 days to rest, recover, and prepare for the next challenge. 3 days before Phoenix Team became something bigger than 8 soldiers in a cave. 3 days before they started building an army that would rain thunder from the heavens. The shuttle docked with the Valkyrie with a soft clang. As the airlock cycled open, Jake took one last look at the planet below. Good hunting, he whispered to the craters, to the vanished Krell armies, to the future teams who would follow in Phoenix's footsteps. Then he stepped into the ship and toward whatever came next. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the training facility orbiting Mars, watching 12 new teams run through simulation exercises. Each team consisted of 8 specialists, handpicked from Earth's military forces. Each one had scored perfect marks on the tactical assessment. Each one had volunteered knowing the mortality rate for forward observers was 40%. Team 7 is struggling with the timing algorithms, Ben said, limping up beside him. The shoulder had healed, but he walked with a cane now. Nerve damage from the plasma burns. He refused medical retirement. They keep trying to rush the calculations. Pull them aside after the sim. Show them Hayes's final mission recording again. Jake's voice went quiet. Show them what happens when you miscalculate by even 3 seconds. Ben nodded and made notes on his tablet. In the 6 months since the Battle of Broken Spine Valley, as the historians were calling it, Phoenix Team had trained 400 new forward observers. 96 were already deployed across contested worlds. The results spoke for themselves. Krell casualties had tripled, while human losses dropped by 60%. Planetary occupations that would have taken years now ended in days. The Krell were adapting, spreading their forces, avoiding massed formations, but that adaptation came with its own price. Scattered forces were less effective, easier to contain, vulnerable to conventional forces. Humanity was winning. Jake, we've got a problem. Lisa rushed into the observation deck, her face pale. Priority alert from the frontier. The Krell just hit Darwin's world with everything they have. 200,000 warriors, full orbital support, planetary bombardment. They're not trying to occupy. They're trying to exterminate. Jake's blood turned to ice. Darwin's world housed 300,000 colonists, most of them families who'd fled Earth's overcrowded cities seeking a better life. The colony had minimal defenses, a small militia, nothing capable of stopping a Krell extermination fleet. What assets do we have in system? BESS Thunderhead and 2 destroyers. Captain Ramos is requesting immediate reinforcements, but the nearest fleet is 4 days away. Lisa pulled up tactical displays. The Krell are landing in waves. They're spreading across the entire planet simultaneously. No choke points, no massed formations. They learned from what we did at Broken Spine. Jake studied the display. 200,000 Krells spread across Darwin's continents. 3 ships in orbit facing a Krell battle group of 30 vessels. 4 days until reinforcements arrive. 300,000 civilians with nowhere to run. The mathematics were brutal and simple. Darwin's world was going to fall. "Get me Captain Ramos," Jake ordered. The comm channel opened seconds later. Captain Vincent Ramos appeared on screen, his face streaked with sweat. Behind him, the Thunderhead's bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. Alarms blared in the background. "Morrison, thank God. We need options, and we need them now. The Krell are glassing the northern continent. 15,000 civilians dead in the first bombardment. Captain, how many kinetic batteries do you have? 12 operational? 6 more cycling up at Jake. The Krell are spread across the entire planet. There's no way to hit them all without dropping rods on our own cities." "You're thinking too conventionally." Jake pulled up geological data on Darwin's world, his mind racing through possibilities. The planet was tectonically active, sitting on a young crust with massive fault lines crisscrossing every continent. What if we don't target the Krell directly? Ramos frowned. I don't follow. The Krell are spread out to avoid our strikes, but they still need to move, to coordinate, to maintain supply lines. Darwin's world has unstable geology, major fault lines running under their primary landing zones. Jake highlighted 3 locations on the tactical map. If we hit these 3 points with maximum yield strikes, we trigger cascading seismic events, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, continental shelf collapses. We don't kill the Krell with kinetic energy. We kill them with the planet itself. Lisa's eyes widened. That's insane. The seismic damage would be catastrophic. For the Krell landing zones, yes, but I'm running the models. Jake's fingers flew across his tablet. Human settlements are located on stable continental plates, specifically chosen for that reason. The major fault lines all run through uninhabited regions where the Krell are staging. If we time this right, we turn Darwin's geology into a weapon. Ramos studied the plan, his expression shifting from skepticism to grim understanding. You want to crack the planet like an egg. I want to make Darwin's world uninhabitable for an invasion force while keeping our civilians safe. The Krell chose their landing zones based on tactical advantage, not geological stability. That's their mistake. Ben pulled up seismic projections. If we hit these fault lines simultaneously with full yield strikes, we're looking at magnitude 9 earthquakes minimum. Probably multiple volcanic eruptions. The entire tectonic system will destabilize. Can we evacuate the colonists in time? We don't need to, Jake said. Human cities are built on bedrock, reinforced against seismic activity. Standard colony protocol. They'll feel the quakes, but the buildings will hold. The Krell are camped on loose sediment and active fault lines. When those fault lines shift, their forces will be buried under landslides, lava flows, and tectonic displacement. Nina ran through the calculations twice. The math works. We hit these 3 points, and the resulting seismic chain reaction will devastate everything within 200 kilometers of the fault lines. That covers 80% of Krell troop concentrations. And the other 20%? Ramos asked. Conventional strikes and ground forces. Once we break their primary strength, your Marines can mop up the survivors. Jake met the captain's eyes through the screen. Sir, this is extreme. The environmental damage will be permanent. Darwin's world will be geologically unstable for decades. But the alternative is 300,000 dead civilians. Ramos was quiet for 10 seconds. Jake heard the alarms continuing in the background, heard damage reports being shouted across the Thunderhead's bridge. Every second of delay meant more colonists dying under Krell bombardment. Do it, Ramos said finally. Uploading your coordinates to our targeting systems now. All batteries charging to maximum yield. Time to target? 6 minutes. Jake opened a channel to Darwin's planetary government. Governor Patricia Hughes appeared, her face showing the strain of coordinating evacuations under fire. Governor, this is Lieutenant Commander Morrison with the Thunderbolt program. In 6 minutes, we're executing kinetic strikes that will trigger major seismic events across your world. I need you to activate every earthquake protocol immediately. Get everyone into reinforced structures. Seal all emergency bulkheads. This is going to be rough. Hughes didn't waste time with questions. Understood. Activating colony-wide emergency procedures now. How rough are we talking? Magnitude 9 or higher. Multiple eruptions. Possible tsunami on coastal regions. Her face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. My people will be ready. Just make sure you kill every last one of those alien bastards. That's the plan, Governor. Jake switched back to Ramos. Strike authorization confirmed. Execute. When ready. Kinetic batteries locked on target. All 3 strikes synchronized. firing in 10 seconds. The observation deck fell silent. Jake's team gathered around the tactical display, watching the countdown. The 12 new trainee teams had stopped their simulations, sensing the gravity of the moment. 3, 2, 1. Strikes away. On the display, 3 markers appeared in Darwin's sky, falling toward the planet like meteors. They hit the fault line simultaneously with mathematical precision. The seismic readings went off the scale immediately. The planet screamed. Jake watched the seismic data scroll across his display in real time. 3 impact points, 3 massive fault lines fracturing under the kinetic assault. The energy released was beyond calculation. Darwin's world, geologically young and volatile, responded exactly as the models predicted, and then it exceeded them. Magnitude 9.4, Nina reported, her voice climbing. Wait, 9.7. It's still rising. The first volcanic eruption appeared on satellite imagery. Mount Razor, dormant for 3 centuries, exploded with enough force to send ash 30 kilometers into the atmosphere. Then another eruption. Then 5 more, a chain reaction of magma chambers breaching containment as the planet's crust buckled and shifted. Krell forces in Sector 7 are gone, Ben said, tracking troop movements. Landslide buried the entire staging area. 40,000 warriors just gone. More reports flooded in. A canyon swallowed 12,000 Krell when the ground beneath them split open. Lava flows consumed landing zones. Tsunamis triggered by undersea fault shifts drowned coastal positions. The Krell fleet in orbit watched helplessly as Darwin's world itself rose up to destroy their invasion force. Human casualties? Jake asked, dreading the answer. Lisa checked the colonial network. Minor injuries from the quakes, some structural damage to older buildings. But Governor Hughes had everyone in shelters. No deaths reported. Jake let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Captain Ramos appeared on screen, his expression somewhere between awe and horror. Morrison, the Krell fleet is breaking orbit. They're abandoning their ground forces completely. We're detecting panic on their command channels. They think we can weaponize entire planets. Can't we? Ben asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Jake stared at Darwin's world as it continued to convulse. Humanity hadn't just won a battle, they demonstrated something terrifying. Given the right circumstances, human forces could turn a world's own geology into a weapon of mass destruction. The Krell ground forces are requesting surrender, Ramos continued. What's left of them, anyway? Maybe 60,000 survivors scattered across the continents. They're asking for extraction, offering to leave the system permanently. Jake thought about the 15,000 colonists dead in the initial bombardment, about families vaporized before Phoenix Team could act, about children who would never grow up because the Krell wanted this world for themselves. Tell them their fleet can retrieve survivors from designated landing zones only, Jake said. They have 48 hours. After that, we consider any remaining Krell combatants and will act accordingly. And Captain, make sure they understand something. What's that? This is what happens now. Every time they threaten human worlds, we don't just fight back. We reshape reality itself to destroy them. We drop the sky. We crack the earth. We turn stars and planets and gravity into weapons. Tell them to take that message back to their high command. Ramos smiled grimly. With pleasure. The transmission ended. Jake's team gathered around him in the observation deck. Beyond them, the 12 trainee teams watched in silence, understanding finally what the Thunderbolt program truly meant. We just militarized planetary geology, Lisa said. Fleet Command is going to lose their minds. Let them, Jake replied. We saved 300,000 people. The Krell will think twice before hitting another colony world. Nina pulled up incoming reports, already seeing the effects. Krell forces are withdrawing from 3 contested systems. No explanation given, just full retreat. The intelligence analysts think word of Darwin's world is spreading through their command structure. Ben leaned on his cane. We're not just winning battles anymore. We're winning the war through reputation. The Krell are learning that fighting humanity means facing weapons they can't comprehend or counter. Over the next hour, reports continued flooding in from Darwin's world. The seismic activity was stabilizing. Volcanic eruptions were decreasing in frequency. The planet would recover, though its geology was forever changed. Human casualties remained minimal. Krell losses approached 140,000. Governor Hughes sent a message. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, Darwin's world owes you everything. My daughter was in New Providence during your operation there. You saved her then. You saved her again today. Thank you doesn't seem adequate. Jake closed his eyes. 2 operations, 2 worlds, hundreds of thousands of lives saved, all because Phoenix Team had refused to surrender in that canyon 6 months ago, all because they'd looked at impossible odds and decided to call down the sky. Sir, one of the trainee officers approached hesitantly. What you did today using the planet itself as a weapon, is that going to be standard doctrine now? Jay considered the question carefully. What we did today was adapt to circumstances. The Krell spread their forces to counter our kinetic strike doctrine, so we found a new approach. That's what Thunderbolt teams do. We don't fight fair. We fight smart. We use every advantage, every tool, every force multiplier available. Sometimes that's precision strikes. Sometimes it's turning geology into artillery. And if the Krell adapt again, then we'll find another way to make them regret threatening human lives. Jake looked around the observation deck at the faces watching him. Young officers, fresh teams, the future of humanity's defensive strategy. Listen up, all of you. The Krell outnumber us. Their ships are faster, their weapons hit harder, their warriors are bred for combat. On paper, we should lose every engagement. He pulled up the tactical display showing Darwin's world, the craters at Broken Spine Valley, the dozen other victories Thunderbolt teams had achieved across the frontier. But we don't lose. You know why? Because humanity doesn't just fight with weapons. We fight with physics, chemistry, geology, mathematics. We turn the universe itself into our arsenal. The Krell bring armies. We bring orbital mechanics. They bring ships. We bring planetary science. They think war is about who has more soldiers. We know war is about who uses reality more creatively. The room was absolutely silent. Every team trained here will deploy to defend human worlds. Some of you won't come back, but those who do will have saved thousands, maybe millions of lives. You'll have shown the Krell that humanity doesn't surrender, doesn't break, and doesn't fight on anyone's terms but our own. Jake gestured to the scarred planet on the display. Darwin's world will stand as proof. Humanity, when cornered, when outnumbered, when facing extinction, doesn't just survive, we thrive. We innovate. We unleash wrath that reshapes worlds. Captain Ramos's voice came through on Priority Channel. All teams, this is Thunderhead Actual. Fleet Admiral Grayson sends congratulations on the Darwin's World operation. Krell High Command has issued a formal communication to all human forces. I'm forwarding it now. Jake opened the message. It was brief, translated from Krell military protocol. To human military commanders, the species designated human has demonstrated capabilities beyond initial assessment. Kinetic orbital superiority confirmed. Planetary weaponization confirmed. Tactical adaptability exceeds all projections. Recommendation: avoid human-controlled systems. Avoid human colonies. Avoid human vessels. Classification updated. Humanity designated apex predator species. Engagement protocols updated retreat and evasion, prioritized over confrontation. Nina laughed. Actually laughed. They're scared. They're actually terrified of us. Good, Ben said. Let them be scared. Let them tell their young about the humans who drop thunder from orbit and crack planets like eggs. Let them learn what happens when you threaten our families. Jake saved the message to Phoenix Team's permanent record. 6 months ago, they'd been 8 soldiers trapped in a cave, waiting to die. Now they were the foundation of a program that had changed interstellar warfare forever. His calm chimed. Captain Cross, now Admiral Cross after her promotion, appeared on screen. Lieutenant Commander, I've got new orders for you. Fleet Command wants Phoenix Team reassembled for a special operation. Something's developing in the outer reaches that needs your particular expertise. Jake glanced at his team. Lisa nodded. Nina checked her rifle out of habit. Ben straightened despite his cane. When do we ship out? 48 hours. Rest up, Morrison. This one's going to be interesting. The transmission ended. Jake looked out at Darwin's world one more time, at the planet that had become a weapon, at the proof that humanity's ingenuity could turn even geology into an ally. Phoenix Team, he said quietly. Let's show them what we do best. Lisa smiled. Drop the sky? Drop the sky. Outside, the stars waited. Somewhere out there, the Krell were learning a simple truth that would echo across the galaxy for generations. When you corner humanity, when you threaten their worlds, when you think numbers will guarantee victory, you don't just face soldiers, you face the wrath of a species that has learned to weaponize the universe itself. And heaven help any